When you hear great guitar players improvise over chord progressions, it seems that they're in total command, that they glide through the changes and land on all the right notes at the right time, and often with these beautiful musical results. Such a level of skill, of course, comes from a lot of practice and experience, but also from an understanding of how each note of the scale relates to each chord in the progression and to the progression as a whole. And while some people will get there through simple trial and error, it tends to take a long time, and I know a lot of you simply don't have thousands of hours to spend on this, and that's what today's video is all about. I'm going to show you a great way to take your melodic playing to a whole new level, and it's actually a pretty simple trick. When presented with a chord progression in a certain key, a lot of guitar players will look at it as a whole. They will improvise over it freely with a certain scale, but they will actually see the progression as a single entity and not as a group of different chords. And this might actually sound alright, especially if you pick the right scale, but you might find your melodic playing starts sounding a bit aimless and directionless and even a bit amateurish. What we want to do instead is understand and become familiar with the chords and the scale, and then find beautiful melodic ways of relating one to the other. And this is not something you should be thinking about all the time as you play. It will become a melodic instinct, but this instinct needs to be trained, and this is what the exercise is for. For the purpose of this video, we'll be using a very simple 2-5-1 chord progression in the key of C. I will be using 7th chords because they give us something to chew on, but they're not too out there. And they are D minor 7th, G 7th, and C major 7th. Now, if I'm trying to relate scales to chords, the most obvious thing would be to start from the roots. And that's exactly what we're going to do. So we're going to build a phrase over each chord that starts from the root of that chord. When I'm in D minor 7th, my phrase will start with a D. When I'm in G 7th, my phrase will start from a G. And when I'm in C major 7th, my phrase will start from a C. So right away you'll have noticed the melodic effect of starting each phrase on the root of the chord beneath it. It's a very strong, purposeful, orderly sound. Some people will call it predictable and boring, and yet it's a very important part of melodic playing because a lot of phrases do start from the root and also they conclude and resolve to it. And now we can move up to the next note of the chord, which is the third. In the chord of D minor, we'll start now our phrases on F. For G 7th, we'll start them from B, and from C major 7th, we'll start the phrase on E. I'm sure you heard the big difference between the thirds and the roots. I love starting phrases on thirds, and I find them very beautiful and very emotionally charged, so certainly one of my favorite notes. And now let's move up to the fifths. The fifths sound very open, transparent, sometimes official is a word that comes to mind. On D minor 7th, the fifth is A. For G 7th, the fifth is D. And for C major 7th, the fifth is G. Let's see what it sounds like. And finally, you might have guessed it, let's move up to the sevenths. The seventh sounds very dissonant sometimes and very edgy, but I just love them. They sound so interesting. And again, very quickly on D minor 7th, I want you to start from a C. For G 7th, of course, starts from an F. And for C major 7th, start from a B. Now, of course, this is just an exercise. In real life, you probably don't want to start all your phrases from the roots or the thirds or the fifth or the seventh exclusively. You'll mix and match and you'll see where one melody wants to go and you'll have the answer of where you want it to land or start from. Sometimes you will probably even want to start your phrases or melodies from notes outside the chords, and that's of course absolutely fine. But this exercise will really fine-tune your ear to the possibilities of melodic playing. But I want to give you one more exercise. It's a bit more advanced, but not too difficult, and it will really help you get used to the idea of mixing and matching intervals. Here's what I want you to do. On the D minor 7th chord, I want you to start your phrase from the root D. But for the next chord, G7th, I want you to start your phrase on the 3rd, B. And for the C chord, I want you to start your phrase from the 5th, G. And on the 2nd bar, from the 7th, B. And let's see what this sounds like. Then of course you could start this wheel of root, 3rd, 5th and 7th from the 3rd and do 3rd, 5th, 7th and root, and so on. You can even randomly pick an interval for each of the chords and take this as far as you want to. As always, if you're on my Patreon, you'll be able to download all the assets and graphics from this video in high definition along with other extra exclusive content. I would like to thank you as always for being there. Maybe check out some of these videos if you want to learn more about guitar and playing in general. If you could like and subscribe this video and maybe share it with your friends and other guitar enthusiasts, I would really appreciate it. It does help a lot, and I look forward to seeing you on the next one.